All right, can you hear me okay this morning? We've had some connection issues today, and I think I've got everything resolved. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me, and you can see the screen that I had up. All right, good deal. I'm a little concerned there for a moment that we weren't going to be able to connect today. All right, so let's get started. Sorry about the whole confusion there. Yeah, somebody help Mike with that question. Would you please post the link to where the replays are at? If you could do that for me, please, I would appreciate it. Good morning, Pete. All right, let's get started here. I'll recognize who we have on, and we'll take it from there. Sharon, good morning. Jeff is on with us. Ray from Texas. Arnie is on as well. And yes, Arnie, I'm doing fine this morning. The issue was more the computer than it was me. And we'll see how the rest of the day goes with both the computer and me. So we'll make it work. Good morning, Terry. Good to see you. Hello, Tim. Tim did the right thing. He kind of covered all the bases morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever in the world you happen to be. And that's kind of what I should have probably started out with, except for the fact I got distracted. This is Eric coming to you from a wet downtown Huntsville, Alabama this morning. And so it is morning for me on Friday morning. So let's see here. Spence, glad to have you on. Diane is with us. Hey, Sam, good to see you. Let's see here. And then we have Pete from London. We have Glenna is with us, and so is Rob. Let's see. And Daniel and Glenna. And I know somebody has the link to the past replays. If you could grab that, I would appreciate it. Hey, Herman, good to see you this morning from the Netherlands as well. So thank you all for jumping in here and joining me this morning. Let's see, because I'm running around the house trying to find a place where I can connect today. I'm out of coffee. I left my coffee someplace in the process of this, and I have something tickling my throat, so we'll get it taken care of. All right, Little Bit, good to see you from windy California. And let's see, who else are we missing? Rob, I think I said something to Rob earlier. Anybody else want to introduce themselves this morning? We are low in attendance today. Last week, I took the weekend and took the week and traveled with my grandson. And thank you, Terry, I appreciate that. When I was traveling with my grandson, the intention was for us to get back here on Thursday evening so that we could, so that I could do the broadcast on Friday morning. Nigel, good to see you as well. But our intention was to get back here to my house on Thursday evening. And as we're driving down the road, Tyson said to me, remember, he's 5. He said, Papa, can we watch the Chiefs football game? And I went, well, yeah, it starts in 20 minutes. I'm not sure how we're going to do that because we're 3 hours from home. And he said, by the time we get home, the game will be over. Well, you just can't. I mean, this is my grandson. So what do? You stop and get a hotel room so you can watch the football game. And my intention was to do the broadcast from the hotel room. their internet couldn't connect enough for me to be able to do it. And I tried to do it from my phone, off the hotspot on my phone. I couldn't pull that off either. So I apologize for all of that. Hello, Michelle. Good to have you. Let's see. We have James. All right. But that was the reason why we didn't do last week's webinar, is because I had no way to connect to the internet. And then I get home and I have a connection issue with the internet. So I don't know. This is life the way that it is. So Sharon, good to see you from Phoenix. All right. I think that takes care of at least most of the people who wanted to introduce themselves. You're really important to me, and I don't want to ignore anybody. So we give you a chance to introduce yourself and take care of little things like Mike was looking for the link to the webinar replays, and so we were able to grab that for him as we got started, and Pete and Terry hooked him up, and I appreciate that. Hey, Danny, good to see you as well. So having said all of that, and most of it was totally unplanned, let's get started here. I want to jump into the agenda for this morning. Got some cool stuff I want to share with you. I got some ideas that I want to run past you for things I think that will be helpful to you. And we're just going to do what we typically do, which is described for you right here, and that is make this a very interactive learning experience. Give me a second so I can pop the chat out here. And but we want you to have this. Somebody had used the word class earlier. While this has a point and we're going in a particular direction, it is still going to be an interactive learning experience so that we can actually address things that people are struggling with. For the first 2 years that we did this, everything that we did was laid out, and we had new things that were happening all the time, new stuff that we were introducing. And since that time, things have changed a little bit, and we are in a different pattern right now. And so I polled the people a while back, and the desire and the interest was keep doing what you do and give us some direction that can be beneficial to us in ways that we might be able to design for ourselves or for somebody else. And so that's really where we've had the focus. And oftentimes somebody will ask a question that will take us in a slightly different direction than we had intended to go. But that's okay, because your questions are important, but they have to be asked early. And because sometimes it requires an awful lot of preparation to make that happen. All right. So try to get rid of this frog in my throat. But most of all, we want to have a good time, because I have found over the years that creativity thrives in an environment where people are having fun. Whenever somebody starts their conversation by saying this is frustrating, then you can be sure that they're not going to be at their creative best. So speaking of creative best, Elle posted this in the group, and it's an infographic. So I had to show it to you like this, and you can't see the details in it, but the details are extremely important. Elle has a media company, EK Media, and she does an amazing job. She is typically on with us on Fridays. I haven't seen her show up yet. And she may or may not be able to be here today. But I loved her creativity here of being able to take this layered. These are actually, and we'll talk about them later, these are actually vectors that are available for you inside the platform, as are many of the other things that you'll see here. And, and she used them to create what I think is a very amazing infographic. So kudos to you, Elle. I really liked the way that you laid that out and made that happen. Hey, David, and let's see who else. Oh, Mark just came in. So good to have you as well. So this was a really, really creative use of the vectors, Elle, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us in the group. Again, there's all kinds of ways that you can accomplish the things that that you want to do when you have become a master of the output or outcome and the result. And so we focus a lot of attention on that. That's a big chunk of the reason why we do the way that we do that. Okay. Teresa, is that a question? Are you having issues getting things to load? Are y'all still able to see my screen? We'll make sure we can still see the screen. Okay, good. All right. Teresa, you might just use F5 and see if you can refresh and see if that makes a difference. Okay. All right, Arthur, hey, I didn't see you earlier either, so glad to have you on with us today, and thank you for your input. Spence as well. All right, great job by Elle. I thought she did a really, really good job of making an amazing infographic using Uzine and some of the vectors, and you can see her very creative use of the vectors. Elle just exudes creativity, and so I'm always fascinated by the things that she shares. Okay. The next one is this, and again, you're hearing me say this all the time: master the outcome, master the outcome, master the outcome. And when this question about text was asked, the first thing I noticed was over here on the side, the only text that he has are the text that he had saved here, are the text that is in the program. So we'll talk about that when we get to that part, because if you're trying to use a system font, system fonts are made to go in one direction. That's on a horizontal plane. If you turn them just a little bit, you change their sizes by using the handles, they are not designed to do that. And you get exactly what Dale experienced here. And that was when he, when this was what he saw in Designer. This is, excuse me, this was his output. And it's because he was using a system font. Use the fonts that are available in Uziner if at all possible. If at all possible, use the Uzine fonts and not the fonts on your system, because your system fonts are made to be done to be handled in a completely different manner than the way that fonts are handled inside of Uziner. In Uzine, we can spin the fonts, we can grab the corners, and we can change the sizes and dimensions and all of that kind of stuff. System fonts don't do that well, and when you do it, what you end up with is you end up just exactly like the output that that Dale had here. So we'll talk about that later, but I have to go on a very, very minor rant here about fonts. Use the fonts that are available in Uzine. There's all kinds of fonts that are available there. Use the fonts that are available in Uzine, because if you do, your output will be amazing. If you try to use system fonts because somebody demands that you use this particular font, save that cotton picking font as an image and just use the image. You have to make sure that your stuff renders properly, and the best way to do that is to use the fonts coming inside of Designer. Talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I said I always get the argument, well, Coca-Cola became this amazing company because of their font. But if you go to Coca-Cola's output in their documents, their press releases don't have that amazing font with all the text. So I'm not going to go down that road again, but I do want you to understand that there's a reason to use the fonts that are provided for you inside of Uzine. And there are lots and lots and lots of fonts that are there. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? Does that make sense to everybody? I got to get something here. All right, the next thing is, and this happens every once in a while, the suggestion was made here, wouldn't it be nice if if the image appeared over here? You're trying to save one mouse click and you want hundreds of hours of programming to save you a single mouse click. The old man in me is going to go, no, it's not worth the effort, not worth the effort. Just wanted to bring that up. Just click on the image and it'll look fine. Now, because I spent the week with my grandson, I came in and I used the background removal tool using the erase tool in Uziner, and I was so happy with how fast I was able to do this. I took 12 images, removed the backgrounds from those 12 images, because these were shot inside the hotel room. I took 12 images and removed the backgrounds from those 12 images in less than 5 minutes. It was amazingly fast. They have made some drastic improvements to that erase tool in just the last couple. And I was so happy with the way that turned out. How many of you have noticed the change in the background or the erase tool that has taken place in the AI that's going on with it? How many of you noticed that? Yeah, I love it. I thought this was the artificial intelligence of anticipating what you want to remove is just amazing. And so I'm really, really happy with that. I'll show you one of the things that's a little bit disappointing about it in just a minute, okay? I do want to address one thing, so pardon me for just a moment while I address this. And this is this. And that is that this comes up all the time, Usein and Flash. The last post was 3 months ago. This is not the evening news. We don't have to post something every week about where we stand as far as Flash is concerned. So I went to Google Chrome's website because that's what's impacted by this. It's the browser that's impacted by it. So I went to the browser to see how much information they're putting out about this. This is Google's blog, all right? And notice this article was posted here in 2016, and they updated that article in 2017. These two have nothing to do with Flash, all right? Flash does not go away on January 1. If you read the article that I posted an article saying that it will be phased out by the end of 2020. The end of 2020 is 15 months away. Don't panic over this. Somebody posted in the group on this comment that they haven't used Usein in 2 years because they're using outdated Flash. Then you've just missed out on 2 years of being able to use an amazing program. I don't know what else to say about that. This is a personal opinion. Let me tell you, this guy's not falling. Okay? This guy's not falling. Teresa, if you're not on a Chrome browser, this goes back to the Flash issue. If you're not on a Chrome browser, then that's going to be your issue. There's just no way. This is an Demio has been trying for 2 years to make it possible to watch videos if you are the guest for months and months and months. And and they haven't been able to get that right yet, and they keep trying. If you're on Edge, or if don't ever personal opinion, don't use Edge. Edge doesn't play well with anything except for Microsoft. So there, I've said that. That's enough of that. I'm not going to go down that road any further. But Chrome is the preferred browser for nearly everyone who has a SaaS-based program. Anything that is developed inside the browser, Chrome is the preferred browser for that. People fuss at me all the time about that. We'll build it for something else. You don't understand. It's not what we build it for. It's the fact that Chrome is the preferred browser for that. It just works. Everything else is a mess. Okay? The next thing is this question got asked. I love this question because it's probably been 2 years ago now, somebody asked about making a silhouette. Well, the standard answer is no, we don't have a silhouette tool in Usein. Well, we do. It's called the erase tool. And so I took an hour one weekend and hammered out a very, very simple process for creating a silhouette. And Rose grabbed that URL for that screencast that I did for that and posted that I had posted in the group, and she shared that with us. I want to show you this has gotten so much easier because of the improvements in the erase tool. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, okay? I'm reading the comments here. All right. Now, because of this amazing tool that we have, called the erase tool, it's really, really easy. I loaded this image into the erase tool, and this was the output that I got instantly. Instantly, this is the output that I got. The artificial intelligence in the erase tool now has anticipated what is the background, what is the foreground. This may in part have to do with the fact that I'm using an iPhone 11 now. And yes, I'm an Apple user and a dedicated Apple user, but I'm using an iPhone 10 in portrait mode. And oh my goodness, you talk about easy. You talk about amazing looks. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we get into the canvas. But do you see how much of the background already the program had anticipated removing? Do you see that? Now, how much faster is it if the program's already done it for you? You don't have to do anything. I mean, this is amazing. That's an amazing, this saves amazing amounts of time. All right. But if I want to make a silhouette, I still have to work at it a little bit. I still have to work at it a little bit because I have to do something a little bit different here. This is not about Android, Terry. This is this, I have to work at this. You see how much I had to erase in order to silhouette that? All right. So what I did was I took this image that was outputted here, did this. That's in the group, Frederick. You'll have to check it in the group. Okay. It's in my library of help videos, of which there are 1,893 of those as of this morning's count. So I'll have to search that in order to find it, but it is there. So I knocked this out right here. Do you see that? So that became my output. And what I did was I removed the image itself. I removed the image itself, and from removing the image, then I colored the background black. Using this background color tool down here at the bottom, which a lot of people don't even know exists. But by using the color background down at the bottom, save the image, then this is what I was able to produce in the span of 30 seconds this morning. Now, I have a question for you. This is kind of like the old Memorex commercial, if anybody remembers the Memorex commercial. Which one was the original and which one has been doctored? Because I did something, I want to see how perceptive you are. Which was the image on the right the original, or I'm sorry, was the image on the left the original, or was the image on the right? Art is correct. The image on the right is the one that has been corrected. And do you notice how much sharper the silhouette is on the image on the right? Do you notice that? How did I do that? How did I get the image to be that much sharper on the one on the right than it is on the one on the left? This is a silhouette trick. Anybody know? It's not the opacity. It's not by adding a shadow. A filter. You're exactly right, Jerry. The image on the right is filtered. Again, everything that we're doing is taken from the things that we saw earlier. The image on the right is filtered. Again, the filter is set at a 30% opacity, and it makes because remember this, the image of the entire image, when you put a filter on, the entire image is going to be filtered. But I'm amazed at how just adding, and this is that I think it's called Excitement or something like that. It's the fiery yellow one. How much just adding a tiny bit of yellow to the silhouette itself makes all the difference in the world in how much sharper it looks. Y'all see that? All right. Question. Can you see? This is a real important question. Can you see the yellow on the black silhouette? How many of you can see the yellow overlay on the black silhouette? Rob actually has the right answer. He says a little. You should only be able to barely see it. Okay. I don't want it to be obvious, but you can see the difference between the color of the black. Black's a tricky color. You can see the difference in the color of the black on the left-hand side and the one on the right-hand side. I'm telling you this because those ever so slight, using Lilibet's phrase here, those ever so slight differences are significantly different in the overall appearance. I call it the law of tiny numbers. Tiny differences can make a huge difference in the output. Does that make sense to everybody? Hey, Jonathan, good to see you. And remember, we're still dealing with this. You're seeing this has been put onto my PowerPoint. I'm sorry, onto my whatever it is that we use with Apple Keynote, and then it's going through Demio, and then it's being reproduced on your screen. So it's a little. It's going to vary a little bit from one person to the other, and that was the reason why I was trying to get your input back and forth. Just see how that was looking. See if everybody could see the same thing that I'm seeing. Okay, now very quickly, I want to ask you a poll, and I need your input on this poll so I know what to do next. Not next today, but I know what to do in the days to come. How many of you got the ISO Creator? There you go. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about it. I'm not going to do it today. I don't want to spend a little bit of time talking about it, but I'm not sure that I wanted to spend the number of people who have it would determine how much time I would spend doing it. Okay. All right. That helps me to understand. All right. That'll help me. I'll spend a little bit of time with it. Just a little bit of time with that based upon the response that I see here, and y'all may even be better at it than me. Since we talked about Elle's amazing show of her infographic and how she created that, we will go back to the vectors. I have still yet not finished what I was going to do with the vectors, okay? And I will address that. So if anybody has questions before we get started here, before we go to the Canvas, make sure you post those questions now so I have time to address them in the last half of this webinar, because we're going to talk about some tips and tricks that will be helpful to you, and then we'll take some time to address your questions, okay? All right. Let me stop sharing that screen, go to a different screen. So give me just a second here to do this. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Can't have that up there. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. I didn't get all of those things closed out before I got the notice that I wasn't able to share my screen. So, excuse me. Tell me now if you see my screen. Okay. Let me make sure we're on the right. I'm going to change windows and change tabs, but I did see a question that flipped by just as I was asking that question, and that was, what is ISO? That's actually a 3-dimensional project. I'll demo it just a little bit, either next week or the following week, but we'll spend a little bit of time with it. But this is what I want to do right now. I want to talk about this whole silhouette process and what did we go through in order to do this, and how easy is it, and so on. So this is my, but I'm going to do this backwards, okay? This is my original right here. And so this is the original, and this is what I started out with to create the silhouetted image that's here. Then I went down here to this Ignite template right here, made that, and you can see it floods it with yellow. Goes from here to here. Again, that was a question I was talking about earlier. How hard is that to do? It takes, a mouse click to make that happen. But typically what I do is I make I tone these way down. So we're down here to 30%. And you can see that this has more yellow in it, but notice what happens to the silhouette when you do that. I see a slight difference in that silhouette, and the slight difference is kind of what I was looking for to make that work, okay? And you can play with this and figure out which one of these is going to work the best for you. But just a little bit of color on top of the black, just a tiny bit of color on top of the black, makes a difference in how sharp it looks. It doesn't give depth to it, but it makes a difference in how sharp it looks. Brief explanation of that. I was doing a color seminar in Brockton, Massachusetts, and a guy walked in with his son-in-law, and he was carrying a black drawer front. And he said, "You said you could match any color anywhere, and I can't match this. My son-in-law is a student at the Art Institute. He can't figure out why we can't match this color." And he said, "It's black, and we've gotten every kind of black we can get. We've gotten, and black is black. They just, and it's black. I don't know what else to do with it." And I said, "I'm going to tell you how to do this. You need to put a slight amount of yellow in the top coat that goes over the top of that." And I will never forget, his son-in-law, who's a student at the Art Institute, went, "Oh man, that's what I was missing. It's so obvious that yellow's there now that you pointed it out." And just a little bit of color on top of a black image makes a big difference in how it looks overall. Okay? By the way, they were able to perfectly match that drawer front after that by adding the yellow into, it was actually a color that we had called lemon yellow. We used to do color matching that way. All right. Do y'all understand what I'm talking about here? Do you see the difference? Is that difference going to make a difference? Is it worth the effort? Yes, I can do this very simply by adding that filter to this. Okay. And it really does make a difference when you add just a tiny amount of color on top of the black. All right. So how did we get from where we are to here? The way we did that's really simple. Go over to my uploads. This was the image that I had used originally. Okay. And you can see I had too much fun taking the backgrounds out of these. So let me grab just one of these here somewhere. Let's see. Not really sure that I know the answer to that one, Robin. The rest of the image, appears, as she says, appears to be a little bit more crisp when you do that. We'll go back to the filters for just a second. But see, that's when you add the filter, it does make a difference, and this is huge. It does make a difference in how crisp the image looks. This one's a little bit different than the one that was original. I just thought we'd play with it for a second and see. But it does make a tiny bit of difference. I'm not really sure why, but I do recognize that that happens. I also see the same thing happening on this spire down here, okay? Absolutely, totally a trial and error thing. But because I look over here, I knew what field I wanted to be in. I don't want to use a blue, obviously. That's just that looks like that. It gets muddy. Again, we had the color wheel we spent 3 weeks on the color wheel. Anytime you pull a color through the middle of the color wheel, and you pull the color through the middle of the color wheel, does everybody understand what I'm talking about when I say that? When you pull the color through the middle of the color wheel, it makes the colors look muddy. All right, let me grab a color wheel and I'll show you. Let me just grab color wheel here. Hang on a second, because I think this is important. Yeah, what Rob said, that's the reason why I did the color stuff, okay? So let me just pop this color wheel up here, see if you can see it. Ah, crud, it's gonna be, this is a sales, this is an ad. But I have yellow and blue. Which direction is that color going? Do you see that? You see what happens when I pull this color and this color was what I did. I'm sorry, it's what I did here. And so the consequence of that is that when you pull it through the middle of the color wheel, you make the color muddy. All right. So that's the reason why this muddies up the color of this. I can change it a little bit by toning it down, but it still looks like mud, right? But I don't have a whole lot of control over the colors here. And when I put that blue on, I still going to end up with something that looks like muddiness, okay? All right, that's a really good question, Mary. What that means is that I'm taking color from here and color from here. And actually, the original color of that, when you look at the original color here, when I go to the original, that original color is down in this range right here. So I'm actually, when I add the blue, I'm actually putting these two colors together and they go right straight through this color wheel. And that's called pulling it through the middle. Okay. All right. So how did I get this silhouette and what did I do to make that happen? We'll go back over here to the uploads. And I'm going to use a different one this time. That will actually, I'll use this one. And we'll pull this image up. And watch what happens when I use the erase tool here. And see this initializing over here? It's actually anticipating what that's going to be. All right. And so you can see how much of the image has been removed. Right? Amazing. I think that's amazing. All right. So what I am going to do though is I'm going to get rid of this little piece right here. And all I have to do that is go, yep, you're right. Let's keep this stuff in the middle and we'll get rid of this stuff on the outside. Boom. There we go. How hard was that? All right, we'll do it again, Isabel. Let me delete that picture. And because you can see how fast this is. Let's use this image here this time. Okay. Now watch what happens. See how much of this is already anticipated removing? I thought it was really interesting that the back of this chair is the same color as his ear, so it got a little confused. And this luggage care right here in the carousel at the airport is the same color as his hat. So it got slightly confused about a couple of things there, okay? But that's it. That's what it looks like. And no, his ear does not stick out that far. That happens to be the back of the chair. So what I'm going to do now is grab the green tool, pull this down here, make sure that I've covered all of this just for fun. And now I'm going to use this to get rid of this up here at the top. And it sneaks up on it a little bit. But again, it's finding the same color in the hat, because that's literally what the erase tool does, is it finds the colors and removes the colors that you have identified. All right, this one's a little bit trickier, but I can get his ear to look normal. We're getting closer. And that's pretty close, because he actually has his hat sitting over the top of his ear, which is part of what made that look that way. There we go. That looks pretty close, right? I didn't. The program erased what was behind first. That's what I'm saying, that now the advancement in the erase tool, it anticipates you removing the background. Anticipates that, which personally is incredible. All right. So now I've still got this little spot right here that needs to be removed. I take this, grab this. I'm really close. All right, see that now? Thank you, Michelle. I was going to point that out once I got out of here. So it's always been incorporated into Usesign since 2016. I did the original demo on it. So that would have had to been about 2016. Now I'm going to save this, but I want to change this background over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a background that will not create confusion. Okay. I want a sharp contrasting background. Got it? So now I have added a sharp contrast to the background. I'm going to save it. Will it be easy to deal with this this image now? Because I have to do this in reverse. The program is going to anticipate that this is what I want removed, but it's not, because what I want to do is I want to create a silhouette here. This is the reason why I want you to see this, is because this is really important. I'm now going to incorporate this into my erase tool. You see this? It's right below the crop tool on this side menu right here. And I click on the erase tool. And now what it's going to do is tell me that's going to erase the other way. See that? So what I want to do is I want to tell the program to erase everything that's in that green. Or keep everything that's in the green, right? There we go. Now I want to remove all of this. And I have to work a little harder at it. But I had to work a lot less because I was dealing with the original, right? The only disadvantage of this new feature in the anticipating the background is that it's trying to work instead of, and I haven't figured out a way to turn that off yet. All right. So I have to work at this a little bit more. I'm getting closer. I'm trying to read your questions as I do the erase here. Because I really confused the program by keeping everything in the what the program sees as the background. So now I have to be a little more picky about what I get rid of. Let me show you a little trick here. I'm watching on this side over here on the left-hand side. Y'all, can you see that I'm working on the left-hand side? Do you see that? All right, what I'm going to do, I want to show you a trick. Watch over on the right-hand side. I'm actually moving my mouse on the left-hand image, but I'm paying attention to the right-hand side. That way I know where I'm at and the result that I'm getting. You see that? So I can see how close I am. There we go. Up. I was right there. There we go. Ah. And I know there's a way to turn this off. I haven't figured out what it is yet because, like I said, I spent part of my time on the beach with my grandson. That's how I ended up with these images. There we go. We're getting close. But if you'll use the mouse on the left-hand side, and I can't for the life of me figure out why it keeps trying to bounce back like that. So, scalpel tool. Y'all watching? Scalpel tool. I'm going to use the scalpel tool to help me with this so I can keep everything where it belongs. Pull that down here, grab the middle of that scalpel tool, pull this out so it looks like an arm and it doesn't look like a straight line. Grab it right here, pull this out so it looks like a shoulder. Now do you see that? All right. Now what I want to do is I want to continue to remove this. So now I'm going to remove those things inside of that line. How many of you have mastered that scalpel tool? It is worth taking some time to play with. It really is. I'm going to show you one more time. Click on the scalpel tool. I'm going to grab this portion right here. Oh, click on the scalpel tool. I'm going to grab this portion right here. And I'm going to come down to here. Now, that's obviously going to create a straight line, but that's not a straight line. So I need to make it look like his body part, right? I can move this one out a little bit here. Now I've got a nice curvature there, right? We've got a nice curvature to this shoulder. Can you see this nice round curvature right here? So now, come back in here and I do this. It's a good way for you to see how to use some of the tools that are here, right? Glenna, I've seen your work. You have mastered the scalpel tool. I would totally agree with that. Yes, you have. So I'm going to take the scalpel tool again, just because it's kind of fun. I actually like using it, to be honest with you. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to create a straight line across the bottom of this. And now I'm going to go back in here and delete this stuff in here. Remember, we're creating a silhouette. We're not working on perfection here. And I think one of the hardest things that we ever do is that we don't understand what the outcome is going to be. Oh, my outcome to be a silhouette? Then I keep my extra work to a minimum. All right, got this little spot right here. And I have this little spot right here. And we're really close. Let me get this down here so I can see it. All right, do y'all see that now? Yes. But I wanted you all to see the scalpel tool, how you can modify that, make those things work for you, okay? Now, what I'm going to do next is take my background right here, make that black. Ha! How's that look? All right. See that? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to save that. See that? Now, the next thing to do is to open up the erase tool one more time. Do you see that? The only thing I have to get rid of is that little bump of red that I left behind. And I'm going to do, and in order to do that, I'm going to say yes, erase the black, or yes, keep the black. And now erase that little red bump. And we are good to go. I'm going to change my background, make sure that it's transparent, and I'm done. How was that? Now, this makes a really interesting book cover or product cover or something like that, right? Well, I'm not sure what I did that was copy and paste. Let's make a product cover out of this. That's here. I'm going to click on this is my background image right here. All right. Are y'all with me? Click my background image right here. I'm going to set that as the background. I'm going to take this and make that a product cover. I'm going to go back over here to my filter. Go down here to the Ignite. Turn that down to about 30%. And now put a text at the top of it. Find me a really cool text title. Did I make that an M? I sure did. We'll put a slight special effect on this. All right. Turn that just a little bit. Make that a little bit bigger. Oh, the silhouette just automatically puts itself on the picture. How do you save the text on the left-hand side? That's going to be my very next thing to say. So if I like this, what I'm going to do is go over here to my text tool, universal icon for save. Right there, boom. Well done. Your font has been saved. And guess where it's at? Right there. Okay. Great question. Now I can look at this. What do you think? Of course it does, Ray. Now, what I would do, since Ray says it needs work, I would do this. In this particular case, this one will look pretty good if you put a little bit of a border around the outside of it. It's missing the author's name, but do you see how the font kind of, and again, this is really important for the whole font conversation that we had earlier. Do you see how the font becomes important to the message itself? Or did I just make that up? Let's just go back over here to the fonts for a second. And let's put this in a very proper font. Does this communicate the same thing that this does? Fonts are a huge part of the message itself. The answer is, she's asking, what is the font? That's the one at the top right here. I don't know. I'll just go over here and find out. It's the if font. Now, this also needs an author's name and that kind of a thing. Well, let's see how it looks if we, since I put a little border around the outside of it, I cleaned that up a lot, right? This might be where he's from. Who knows? Or maybe he ran away from home and went to see the Eiffel Tower and got lost. I don't know. That's why you have to read the book to find out. Correct. All right. Any other questions? Is this all cool? Do you understand what we're doing? Do you see the value that's here? It does have a shadow of the yellow, and I'm not sure where that's coming from. Oh, that's where it's at. It's right there. It's part of the tower below it. If you make it too big, it gets in the way though. The only thing I did that I didn't really filter the font, but I knew the value of this color. So what I did was, notice over here, I actually went to this and I picked that same color to put in a border around the outside of the font. See the difference it makes? Filtered image, the font's going to be slightly filtered too. All right. Any other questions before we wrap this up? Because we've now been right at an hour, except for the 3 minutes I took trying to figure out how to connect. We have a couple of options on the book view, and they're all pretty much like this. The problem with this one is that the rings in the ring binder don't go through the cover, which they should. We have this, which looks really good. Okay. The DVD case, the Kindle. I see another thing is that when I was messing around with this a while ago, pull that up, I got that. And part of my reason for putting the border around the outside of the book was to make it look like it's kind of growing out of the border. Sure. Over here, click on special effects, and we can just, I have to be on it, click on the special effects and just select border. Yes, I did see that, Michelle. And yes, you can turn that off. I wanted to leave it on in this particular case because I saw that just as I made the comment. I wanted to leave it on so I could show you how to use the scalpel tool and what to do when you were having those things that were bouncing back and forth, and how to eliminate them with the scalpel tool. And Don, even though we've gone over here, if you'll stick with me for just a second, I'll show you something. This is a pretty common thing for me to do. I do this fairly often, and that is that. Okay. To cut out of here. Thank you all for joining me. Have a wonderful weekend. Oh, we'll have to do that the next time, Ken. Thank you. Appreciate you. Have a great weekend. I look forward to seeing you next Friday in November.